Wes Goldberg, happy Friday, my friend. Cold open question for you. Is anyone doing Instagram better than Kevin Love right now?
The answer is no, and man, he's breaking barriers. He's like that guy at the party that just has those sick references from movies, but he's tying it into current events. Him and Jimmy Butler are like two peas in a pod when it comes to trolling and knowing what kind of gets the media worked up, and I shouldn't just say media, like social media and fans in
Yeah,
general
everybody.
worked up. Yeah, I've had so many people reach out for the Locked On Heat show, just being like, "What do you make of Kevin Love? Does this mean Jimmy Butler is back?" I'm like, Kevin Love doesn't know if Jimmy Butler is coming back. Nobody knows if Jimmy Butler is coming back. Jimmy Butler doesn't know if Jimmy Butler is coming back yet. All of that stuff is to be determined, but Kevin Love likes to stir the pot for sure.
When Kevin Love, a lot of them have been great. Very good movie references, all of that. He got me when it hit a point of like Kevin Love is being serially online in a semi good way is when he had the woman with the 1,000, which is a very specific not safe for work reference, and I'm not going to call it what it is. If you know, it means you're too online. But Kevin Love pulling that out wherever he got that from, uh, he's really just spitting. Every Instagram
Yep.
post he's had is just absolutely like a 9.5 out of 10 or higher.
Yep. No question.
It's funny that it's come a long way from him being like shaded online by LeBron James, and now he's here just poking fun at the whole thing. It really shows some growth. I would honestly say
It's senioritis, if anything, right? I've
yeah.
got a couple more years left in the NBA. This is how much I care.
Holding his child in his arms, just like bored and like trying to
Right.
figure out what to do with them on a plane. It's like, what else are you gonna do? You know, Switch 2's not out yet. He's not a video game guy. Like, what else are you gonna do? He's gonna troll and make fun of situations. All right, on today's show, we got a lot to get to. Jimmy Butler maybe back. Cavs Thunder 2. Cam Johnson on the Cavs radar. Nick Richards to the Suns. Quick things we're going to bounce around on a new episode of the Just Basketball Show. Let's go.
Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Just Basketball Show. I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. And if you haven't already, find us on Instagram, on X, TikTok until Sunday, until we see what happens there. But maybe see us more on Instagram. We are powered, want to tell you, by our friends at BetMGM.
Yeah, and if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball. You'll get up to $1,500 on a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be with 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Wes, let's dive in. First thing today, Jimmy Butler perhaps returning to the Miami Heat. Another busy week in Heat world. I want to let you cook. What's going on? The Mickey Arison meeting? Like, what are you expecting now that Jimmy Butler's suspension is up and he could be back with the Heat?
What am I expecting is a great question. I'm expecting more twists, more turns, more surprises because this is not resolved. The only thing that we know for sure is that Jimmy Butler's suspension is over. So what happens next is a great question, Chris. I do expect him to at least be suited up for Friday night's game. And so he does not want to lose any more money. I don't think he wants to do anything that's going to draw another suspension. Ramona Shelburne, in a wonderfully reported piece this morning on ESPN, outlined how all the things that have been going on behind the scenes and sort of the conflict, but also that Jimmy was shocked and PO'd that they suspended him for as long as they suspended him for, and he lost more than $2 million because of that suspension. That's real money, man. So I think he's going to want to avoid losing any more money, but he also wants his way. He wants to get traded. He does not want to play for the Miami Heat anymore. He wants out, man. And for Jimmy, it feels like he's sort of backed into a corner here, right? It feels like he's out of moves. But I've said that before. And Jimmy has found a new way to make a new move. He is the best in the world at whatever this is, right? He whatever this is, he's world class. He will come up with something. I know that. He will come up with some other way to make it uncomfortable for the Heat while also trying to avoid being suspended again. And that's the part that I'm so curious about.
The two things in that story that caught my attention is, number one, Jimmy hasn't even started yet, was both in the headline and both like a quote in there from a source. What does that mean? To your point, it's like he always has something going on. Number two, a Heat source saying we let him do more than LeBron, Zoe, or D Wade ever did. Look, I don't think me less so than you, but we are not in like a position on the outside to like verify that. That's certainly someone's opinion in that story. There's probably some truth to it. If that's true, I don't understand. Like, to some degree, I don't. Aside from the contract, I feel like Jimmy has it like perfect with the Heat. It feels like it has matched his ambitions. It has matched his lifestyle goals. It has matched like him in a bunch of ways. To me, to some degree, the longer this is going on, I think Jimmy Butler might be being short-sighted here. He's 35. There's no cap space for him next summer. The team he clearly wants to go to, and that wants him, the Phoenix Suns, don't have an avenue to get him. The Heat aren't just going to take on Bradley Beal, nor should they. I almost think that the Heat are going to come out like looking fine in all this, West, because I think ultimately I don't think Jimmy has quite the same, even if he has another move, I don't think he can necessarily accomplish like what he did in Minnesota to get himself to Philly again. I don't think that card feels like it's there.
It's not. He misplayed his hand. He really did. From the very beginning, threatening to opt out. Miami was like, cool, opt out. Like we prefer that. That makes it really easy for us if you opt out. Yeah, like we get cap space, we get flexibility, we get one more year of maybe a good Jimmy Butler season. Go ahead, play this year out, opt out, go ahead. And they're like, oh, okay, well, they tried to, even before that, hey, Philadelphia is willing to pay me. Cool. We'll see what happens with Paul George. Paul George signed in Philadelphia. Sixers didn't have the cap space anymore. That dried up real quick. Then he did the I'll opt out move. Miami was like, great. He tried to play the year, did it. Everything was hunky-dory. Played 20 out of Miami's first 25 games, was playing relatively well for the most part. And everybody was good. And they won 4 games in a row. And he tried, I don't know what changed, but there was these reports that he wanted to get maybe traded to Phoenix, or eventually, he's like, hey, I'm open to trading for Phoenix, Dallas, all these teams. And that didn't work because a lot of those teams didn't want Jimmy Butler or could not trade for Jimmy Butler in a realistic sense in the case of Phoenix. And so misplayed that. And it's just time after time he keeps misplaying his hand. He's not that guy. That money's not out there. He wants that max contract. Cool. A lot of people do. Sometimes your max contract days are over, right? Sometimes it's just done. DeMar DeRozan's not a max guy anymore, right? He got paid $25 million a year by Sacramento this summer. That's what that if Jimmy Butler didn't have that $52 million player option for next year, that might be what his market value is.
Yeah.
Just because you've been a max player and you want to be a max player, the Heat are not going to give you that max contract for services rendered, right? Like that's what the money back then was for, not what the money in the future is for. And in terms of Jimmy having it good, I mean, he had it great. Like I said, he misplayed his hand. I think he's been extremely short-sighted. He's let his ego and his pride kind of get the best of him here. And he did misread the market 100%. No team has ever treated Jimmy like a star the way that the Heat have. He wasn't this in Chicago. It was early in his career.
But like, even when he was getting there in Chicago, they were just like, nah, like we don't believe in you. And it was a huge sin of the Bulls ultimately.
Oh, 100%. That was the crossroads. That's when everything went wrong. But yeah, I mean, they literally did not want to pay him as a star player. They didn't view him that way. Minnesota had Cat and Wiggins as number 1 picks. They were the face of the franchise. Jimmy was there as sort of veteran support. The Sixers, that was Embiid's team, not Jimmy's. And so Miami brought him in and said, you're the face of the franchise. Here you go. And gave him everything they wanted. And for the record, what Shelburne and has come out recently in national spaces has been known locally a little bit here. Like there had been whispers around the team that iron fist, to use Dwayne Wade's terminology, or the Heat culture, to use the trademarked terminology, had slipped a little bit.
Sure.
Over these last couple of years. Like there have been whispers, and especially in regards to Jimmy. The fact that he stayed 30 miles outside of the team hotel in Denver during the 2023 finals, this guy routinely Airbnbs or whatever he does places outside of the team's hotel. Like this has been going on for years, and brings his crew and gets mansions and stays there on the road, right? Especially like in New York and places like Denver and stuff like that. The private jets, that's not new information. He's got a lot of off the court things that he's dealing with in his business interests. So his schedule is just different than the rest of the teams, right? He has to fly differently, earlier, later, somewhere else, a lot of times during the season. So, but I think that was a response to the Heat being a little bit. It was probably an overcorrection to the Dwayne Wade and LeBron James era, especially when they let Dwayne Wade walk in 2016, and that was something that they were very sensitive about in the years following. And that was probably an overcorrection. Is, hey, we got to be a little bit more catering to the star player of this generation. And perhaps they went too far that way, but also, like, I don't know, maybe they didn't. I don't know, going one way or the other would have saved Jimmy Butler. I think a lot of this is just sort of the dirty laundry that gets aired like during the divorce, right?
Yes.
And really what this divorce is all about is money. And they had a fundamental disagreement on money and finances. And now they're arguing over who gets what and who gets the share of the house and custody of this, of the dog or whatever. Just like stuff that nobody really cares about, but stuff that you have to discuss and that comes out during the divorce proceedings. And that's just what's happening here.
NBA sources are like the discovery phase in a divorce. Like, that's what it is. I'll add two last things and we'll move on. Number one, I've seen like the Harden Butler, like Harden got paid. I think the Heat are not the Clippers. The Clippers like had a new arena. They needed someone to hold them up while Kawhi was going to be out, and they lost Paul George. Like, that worked out perfectly that one team could pay James Harden what he was looking for to some degree. That was never going to really happen in the same way in Miami. They're just two differently run organizations, all of that stuff. Number two, the only thing that Jimmy Butler this could work out for Jimmy, I would say, and this is not in his control, is if a team not on his list, i.e. the Memphis Grizzlies, trade for him, give up a first, take the swing on him, trade Smart and someone and whatever it is, and get him. That is not something he, by all the accounts, is like a place he wants to go. It's going to be a team like that is going to take the role on him that can maybe get him what he's looking for financially. But he has to give up control then, and that is not, I think, understandably, something Jimmy seems like he wants to do. This is not done. Going to be very interesting to see how this progresses, Wes. Fascinating.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean,
go ahead.
well, no, just a couple notes on that too. But yeah, I think it's to the Harden thing. Like, the Clippers were always out there, right? Like, we kind of tied those two together, and that was known. Phoenix is out there for Jimmy Butler, but they, like you said, don't have the cap space nor the means to acquire him, so it's not the same. But Jimmy opting in to $52.4 million if he's not traded before February 6th is a very real possibility now, because if it's really about the money, he might just take the money, right? Like, how many years is it going to take in the open market for him to make up $52 million? Even if he signs a 2-year, $60 million, it signs, annual average value of $30 million. That's basically 2 years to make up what you could make in 1 year. Like, that makes no financial sense at all. So we'll see what happens on that. Yeah, that's all. Memphis, the Milwaukee stuff, I do buy that. Teams like that, there might be a team out here, but look, the Heat are clearly waiting. They've got offers. Shelburne or Windhorst reported Friday morning that Phoenix is willing to include that 2031 first on a Beal deal, which I think is important, right? Like, if you're another team, we've talked about this. Like, if you're another team, I don't know, maybe it's worth a flyer taking a couple of years of Bradley Beal to get that valuable first-round pick in the future.
I think for a lot of teams it would be.
Right. You look at Detroit, I really San Antonio, teams like that. It could make some sense, but I do think that right now we're in the let's establish some leverage phase. Let's wait. It's not that long between now and the trade deadline. No need to rush between now and February 6th, but there'll be more fireworks between now and then. That's for sure.
Wes, instead of going, we got to get to Cavs Thunder 2, which was something of a letdown. But I want to hit on Nick Richards first, because you mentioned the Suns and Bradley Beal, and I think they're connected.
Okay.
I think if the Nick Richards trade tells us anything, it is literally just that the Suns are gonna go down with the ship absolutely burning on fire before they pivot to another path. I think if the case you made is like trade Durant, blow it up, whatever. Maybe like a Durant switch will happen. They try to do like a medium ground retool or something. But when you trade multiple seconds, which we know that seconds have some value, I think, in this modern NBA.
Good second round picks too. Projected to be good second round
picks. Yes. You trade for a fine but like sub all-star, like kind of just like competent good center. When you do that I think reeks of desperation. I think that reeks of a little bit of panic. I think that reeks of just trying to put duct tape over the holes in the hull of your warship. Like, that's what this feels like this trade is. I think if it tells us anything, it tells us you mentioned the 2031 pick. It tells me if we're reading bigger picture tea leaves here, that if the Suns get an opportunity to trade Beal anywhere, no matter what it's going to cost, I think they're going to do it. And I think it still would not shock me if Butler somehow ends up in Phoenix, but it's gonna the Suns are going to be so pot committed to like a 1.5 year window here that it's going to be absolutely crazy. But that just feels like the path we're going down with them again.
It does, right? And it kind of asks sort of this existential question of like, how pot committed is too pot committed, or is there any point in kind of reversing course, right? And because they keep kind of going between the cushions and looking for spare change. Like, okay, we have like 3 second-round picks. Do you want that for Nick Richards? And Charlotte's like, yeah, sure, why not? And we'll give you that for Nick Richards. But eventually,
they're in like the taking out a personal loan phase, but not a personal loan to like cover some credit card debt or like make a smart fiscal decision and like revamp your finances in that kind of way. It's like
a personal loan to get like rims.
I lost $100,000 at the casino, and I need to cover my losses and also go back to the casino to like
and try to make up my losses.
To try to make up my losses, then let's pay off my loan. Like that's where we're at in this.
Go double or nothing the way I was planning.
Yeah.
No, that's great, right? And so like all this stuff eventually dries up, right? Like the coins between the cushions. Eventually banks stop giving you the loan.
They called Uncle Al for like, can I borrow $5,000, please? I'll give you 20% vig.
They're in a tough spot. The Nick Richards thing is fine. Like I like the addition. It'll be helpful. But like, I don't know, is Nick Richards starting on any of the Western Conference contenders? Like he doesn't start over anybody in Oklahoma City or Denver or, Dallas. Like he's not what's that look like in that matchup, right? Like you're just sort of upgrading from bad to competent, which is fine. Like there's a lot to say about upgrading from bad to competent, but that doesn't get you where they want to go, which like when you make all these moves, like just being a playoff team is not good enough. It hasn't been good enough for the last 2 years, right? You have to be a contender, like Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals. Like that's the goal here. So I don't know. I don't know what Phoenix is doing, and I don't know how far is too far, but they're gonna have to have a meeting with God here pretty soon, man. Because I really don't know. Like even if you let's just say they traded Bradley Beal straight up for Jimmy Butler, which won't happen, but let's just say it happens. Okay, Devin Booker, Tyus Jones, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Nick Richards. Still no depth outside of Grayson Allen. Like how do we feel about that team? Not that great.
Looking at the roster, and you would like it's like you're getting into like Monty Morris, Royce. Like you have like 7 guys that I like, but that is not enough in a loaded West. It just isn't.
And the fit's still not right. And there's more than just a roster issue, right? Like this is more than a personnel issue. This is sort of a team ethos issue, right? Like what team like this just cobbled together ever won a championship? This doesn't work. I don't know how many times this doesn't work. And Brian Windhorst and Tim Bontemps wrote about this, and I thought it was really funny about how, like, after the Stepien rule, which was just the league trying to protect owners from being dumb, owners are sort of joking, like, hey, or not owners, but league sources are joking that, hey, maybe we got to create the Matt Ishbia rule, where if you're a new owner, you can't make a trade within 6 months. And I'm like, that's great, especially as more and more owners start moving around, because every owner comes in, they're dramatically and ridiculously successful outside of basketball. There's no question Ishbia knows business. He knows how to run a business. The guy's a billionaire, right? You don't get that way by accident for the most part. Ishbia did not. But a lot of these guys walk in and think, okay, I know how to handle this. And for like the hubris for him to walk in and just be like, oh, why isn't everybody just trading all of their stuff for stars? It's like, oh yeah, like the rest of the league never thought about that. Yeah. Of course they did. And then they realized that it doesn't work. But he was like, wow, I found this loophole. If you just trade all of your stuff for better players. Like he thought he found like a tax loophole that nobody's ever discovered before. And everybody's like, no, we knew this was an option. We're just not short-sighted enough and dumb enough to do it. You have to build a culture. You have to do all the things that you would do in business. You have to build an organization from the ground up. Like this is not, it is surprising to me. Anyway, whatever. I'm ranting now.
No, the Suns deserve it. This is going to end. This is not going to end in a championship. Like, though, if this ended in a championship, you could justify all of it. That's not where this is ending up. This is
how many guys have trade value on this team, right? Like, you could trade Durant, certainly. Devin Booker, obviously, but yeah, that would be very extreme. But Beal has none. Nick Richards, maybe you get half of what you gave up back. Like, So that's a negative return on investment.
I think a team further down the timeline, like not as pot committed as them, but a contender would trade something for Royce O'Neal, I would guess.
Yeah, you can get probably a couple of good seconds for Royce O'Neal.
But it's like what's that's not solving your problem. Like
well, exactly.
Not,
this is if you're going to do the rebuild, that's sort of the point. Is what does that even look like? And it's all right. Trade Royce O'Neal for a couple of seconds. Maybe you even move Ryan Dunn for like a late first or something
but
like that.
At that point, you might as well just
that's fair.
Break up a Devin Booker. Like
yeah.
That
all right. So it's Durant, it's O'Neal,
and it's Booker, and Booker
and you stick with you have Booker and Beal in the backcourt because you can't trade either of them for different reasons. You've got Nick Richards at center, Ryan Dunn. I don't know, and then whatever you get back for Kevin Durant, essentially, is what that looks like. That is still
Houston, because that's you're calling and saying Houston. Can we have like Cam Whitmore, who's like unhappy?
Right,
like, you're getting the best offer you can from Houston and moving on. Probably.
Best case scenario, you get half of what you gave up back for Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
that best case scenario.
Yeah.
And so, all right, that makes a little bit of sense. 2 years, a little bit more wear and tear, a little bit more mileage on the odometer. That makes sense that you wouldn't get back what you gave up. The question would be, was it worth it? Were these 2 years worth it?
No.
And I think like the answer is no, questionably no. Of course it wasn't worth it. This was a disaster. You fired your coach. You got rid of players that the fan base liked. You ended up being a disaster. You have no real path moving forward. The question is, the answer is no. And so this has been a disaster, unmitigated disaster.
Tough. It's not great times for Phoenix Suns. Wes, let's go to actual basketball. Cavs Thunder 2. What we would have led the show with had that game been good. This was a domination by the Thunder. This was a rout by the Thunder. Two things I think would, if I'm another, there's three things that I thought coming out of this game, and you can tell me what you want to spend our time on. Number one, the Thunder don't have Hartenstein right now because of a calf injury, and Chet Holmgren is also still out. I know there will be like an integration process to figure out like the two bigs and all of that, but the ceiling of, we haven't even seen what the ceiling of this team I think could look like once they're fully healthy. Number two, there is not a defense in the league right now that I think when it fully turns on and they're forcing turnovers like they did against Cleveland, who is usually a pretty good turnover team, they will wreck any team just based on the turnovers when their defense is at its highest peak. It is swarming. It is elite. That could change entire playoff series. Number three, if they have some shaky shooters that if the variance breaks against them at the wrong time, I think that's probably the one thing you look at and say, okay, Alex Caruso doesn't have a good shooting series, that costs them. But if they are hot and like their guys are rolling, good luck. I don't know how you beat this team when the things are just like the little things on the margins on top of the talent breaks their way. Like this team looked ungodly good against Cleveland, who didn't play well, and the Mitchell Dort thing was for a second straight game an issue. But I think that when you see the ceiling in this game and you see like you think about who's coming back for them, I think there's not a question that the highest ceiling in the league belongs to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
It does. They're the best team in the league. I'm willing. I put Cleveland number one in our power rankings.
Cleveland earned it. Cleveland earned it. Game.
Okay, so you got the belt back.
Yeah.
Yep, that's how it works. I want to focus on your second point, the swarming defense of Oklahoma City. This is one of one, man. Like there's no other team playing defense like this. No Hartenstein, obviously no Chet Holmgren in this game. And you saw, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley dominated the first matchup, right? They dominated part one. Part two, Mark Dagnall and the Thunder made a very intentional effort to not only swarm defensively, which I always do, but swarm rebounding too. Every time a ball went up, when the Thunder had the offensive possession, every time the ball went up, the guys from the corners crashed the offensive boards. They created a lot of extra possessions that way and kept the rebounding battle relatively close when you consider, that they were without their two top guys. Cleveland had 49 rebounds in this game. OKC had 39. So a 10 rebound difference, but only three, my math is bad, only three offensive rebounds difference on the offensive boards. All things considered, that's a win when you're the Thunder, considering you had no size and Cleveland had all of theirs, and they start those two centers. So they did that offensively. Defensively, they were so aggressive in getting into the paint when Cleveland's shot went up, right? And they got a lot of they stole a lot of rebounds that way. A lot of defensive rebounds that other in part one were offensive rebounds for Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley or somebody else. So I thought that was a really good, just little small adjustment by Dagnall. But then defensively, man, like this is, I've been sort of like workshopping a nickname for Oklahoma City's defense. And I came and you used the word swarm, and I wrote this down earlier. Swarm and sting, right? Like, and the hive is oftentimes the paint, but it could be anywhere on the court. But especially in this game, like you would have Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland or Dean Wade, Evan Mobley, whoever it was. There was one possession where Max Strus brought it up the right wing, and like he just like picked up his dribble for a second, for a split second, and before he knew it, there was like 3 Thunder players all over him, and the ball was just loose, and then they were going the other way, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored on the other end, and you're like, they create steals in a way that doesn't happen. Like they're not jumping passing lanes, they're just grabbing the ball, they're just taking it away. You got Shai on one end poking it out, and Alex Caruso on the other side catching it, and Max Strus is just sort of standing there like, what just happened? I had the ball and now I don't. And that happened time after time, not just against Cleveland, but even all season. The Thunder had, 12 steals in that game, and it felt like twice as many. It was crazy. Swarm and sting, man. Like when you bring the ball up and you cross half court and you pick that ball up for a split second, you're going to have multiple Thunder defenders on you, and they're going to rip that ball away. And what it reminds me of, Chris, because they go down the other way and they score almost every time, and this team is awesome in transition. What it reminds me of is almost the Warriors, like the peak dynasty Warriors, where they would have these flurries of 3-pointers and there was just nothing you could do.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like that, but different, right? Where they just, in that second, like at the end of the first quarter and in the first half of that second quarter, it was just every other time Cleveland brought the ball down, they lost the ball. Oklahoma City took it. So you get a stop, right? Not only do you get a stop, you don't even get a shot attempt if you're Cleveland. That's the most. These steals are so valuable in today's NBA. You get the steal, and then you score on the other end, and before you know it, a 3-point game turns into a 14-point game, turns into a 42-point game. It's absolutely crazy. It's like a flurry of stop and scores. It's wild.
Yeah, and it's like when I think about the best teams in the league, I think right now in the era we're in, Wes, the best teams have that ability to just create like some version of this where they can just go on a run and bury you, right? Like with the Celtics, it has been the volume of threes creates that. Cleveland at their best this year, I think, has been like an offensive explosion buoyed by a defense that I still think will get better, even though it hasn't been quite as pristine as it has been year over year. They have that ability, but the Thunder's ability to do this defensively and turn it into offense is the most dangerous version of that I think we have in the league right now. Like Boston's not playing at that same defensive level. The Cavs are not playing at that same defensive level, even if they're a better team than they were last year. At least statistically, they're not at that same defensive level. The Thunder have this ability to turn them in, and it's also then it's like, by the way, if you do happen to like get back in transition well and mark our shooters, there's few people in the league right now as precise as breaking down a defense and getting off a clean shot as SGA, who's going to win the MVP. He's the betting favorite right now at BetMGM. He's going to be like minus 300 by the time March rolls around, I think. I think we're trending in him being the favorite. He's playing so clean and so precise and just so consistent. I know like there's that one of the post-game mob things where he was like, I do everything consistent, and the guys were geeking, kind of laughing at him and having a moment with him in that way. But this guy was 17 of 26 from the field. He went to line 5 and he had 40 and 8 with only 2 turnovers. The fact that he was only 1 of 5 from 3 didn't even really matter because he's just getting these clean looks off anywhere he wants to inside the paint, and he's so smooth with it and uses his size so well, and the footwork is perfect. That guy at the center of this whole thing makes, like, if you put in Donovan, even like someone as good as Donovan Mitchell or a John Moran or any other different type of ball handler into this team, they would still be really good. The talent's there. But I think what SGA is doing at the center of it and how smooth and controlled he is elevates this to just an obscene degree. And I am just blown away by how good the Thunder are.
It's at the point now where when Shai isn't on the court, and Jalen Williams struggled a little bit. He was off to a slow start to begin the year. He's gotten better as the year's gone on. But when he's off the court, Oklahoma City's offense is slightly above average. When he's on the court, They're elite. They're the best offensive team in the league when he's on the court. He has become as important to Oklahoma City's offense as Nikola Jokic is to Denver's offense. That's where we're at now with Shea. And so when we have the MVP conversation, I think a lot of pro Jokic people, and that's not even like, a bias thing. That's just people who are voting for Jokic will oftentimes look at the on-off stats and be like, this is, how do you get more valuable than this? And it's a good argument, right? And he's won 3 MVPs a lot because of that argument, also because his numbers are ridiculous and he's the best player in the world. And I still think that Jokic is the best player in the world. This is not that argument. But if you're using that argument about, hey, this is what the Denver Nuggets are without Jokic, and here's what they are with Jokic, we are creeping into territory where that's the same thing for the Thunder. And we don't think about the Thunder that way because we do think of them as this complete team ensemble cast. But take Shea off this team. Just imagine this is a team without Shea. Okay, Jalen Williams is a good player. Is he like a bona fide all-star? No. Alex Caruso's fine. Kaysen Wallace has some promise. Like Chet Holmgren's really good in his second year, but he's injured right now. Hartenstein's a good player. But like this is not and hurt, right? Like this is a good roster. Don't get me wrong. But it's a lot. But like here's my thing about depth is depth always looks way better when you have stars at the top.
Yes.
Right? When depth is just allowed to be depth and you're not relying on them for more. And that's exactly what this Thunder roster is. Outside of Shea, it is a roster that kind of looked similar to those like Denver Nuggets rosters a couple years ago before they started losing guys, where, okay, a lot of good players who we like, but nobody even in the same universe as our top dude. Like, this is not a big two the way that Boston has with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. This is not that. This is not that, right? Like, Jalen Williams is closer to what Jamal Murray is for Jokic than he is what Brown is for Tatum. And so when we're going into these MVP arguments, I just want to say, like, the narrative is out for Denver. We know Jokic carries this cast. He carries the roster. We get that. We're not there yet with Oklahoma City, and maybe we shouldn't be because, again, we think about Oklahoma City as young, and, like, these guys are going to be good. I don't want this to be misread as, like, this roster sucks, but, like, these guys are going to be good, but they're not at that level yet. Shea is that level right now.
Yeah.
He's right there right now. It's a good roster, but it needs Shea to make it work.
I mean, we're not that far removed from Jalen Williams, wing Jalen Williams, really good Jalen Williams, really struggling in the playoffs last year.
The only Jalen Williams that anybody talks about. We don't ever have to differentiate. Nobody ever talks about the other Jalen Williams.
But out of respect, who started for
J. Will versus J. Dub? It makes no sense. Nobody ever talks about the other one.
It's true. It's absolutely.
You just say Jalen Williams. We know who you're talking about.
Okay, just out of kindness.
Sorry, I didn't mean to lash out.
No, it's okay. It's a valid thing. One of them is an All NBA feature guy. One of them is not. He struggled in the playoffs.
Started yesterday. Played pretty well.
Did play pretty well. MVP odds, Wes. I even underestimated where this was from last time when I looked, so that's on me. But BetMGM, SGA is minus 350. Jokic is plus 250. Giannis is plus 4,000. Wow. Tatum is plus 5,000. Wemby is plus 10,000. And Anthony Edwards is plus 50,000. And then like Mitchell, Brunson, Towns are all 50,000.
I like Wemby at plus 10,000, but can I get that next year?
If the Spurs were, yeah, that's like a next year, like that's a top 10 NBA player, but they're not there yet. Yeah.
It is a 3-man race between Shea, Jokic, and Giannis. And
yeah.
Look, we have been here a couple different times this year where it felt like, and when I say race, I mean race, right? Like this is somebody else leading by a hair just a little bit every other week.
It is January. We have to keep reminding ourselves, I think, with this, that it is January 17th, and there are still multiple months of basketball still left to be played. This is not fait accompli. SGA is winning the MVP. Like he's the leader right now, but there's still a lot of basketball. We have to see how it plays out. It would be like rude on our part to just ignore that.
Jokic had an equally, if not more, dominant stretch in December, and we were like, "Yep, he's getting his 4th straight, baby. That's what we're heading that way." Shea did it. Giannis was getting a lot of MVP buzz right up until the NBA Cup. They win the NBA Cup, and then he just gets hurt for 4 games. And then we're just like, oh, yeah, that never happened. It's like, what are you talking about? He got hurt. Like, he's not playing poorly. He's just unavailable right now, and it's not like there's a games played issue with Giannis. So he's back. He's playing great. Milwaukee has won, 5 of their last 6 or 6 out of the last 7, and they have a really easy schedule coming up.
Yep.
Here's my prediction, Chris. Mm-hmm. Within a week from now, we're going to be talking. There's going to be a segment, or we're going to be talking about Giannis MVP. Did we overlook him too much? This is a 3-man race. There's no question about it. It's those 3 guys, and any given week of the season, take a little snapshot, and it's going to be like, this is the MVP right now. It's just sort of a matter of, the accumulation of that, and who's honestly going to have the strongest finish, because voters care about that stuff.
Just want to say to just mention Jimmy Butler one more time before we do our last thing of the day.
Do we have news?
Bucks. No. For your sake, really glad we don't. But Bucks Heat is in 6 days in Milwaukee. Would it not be the most Jimmy Butler thing of all time? Maybe this is his play to just do like a vintage Jimmy Butler, I'm him performance and like motherfucking dominate the Bucks in that game. Would that not be like the Jimmy Butler move, is to just play in that game and play incredibly and just like do what he does to the Bucks?
That's such a great call.
Like,
That's
is that not the thing? He has like a 40-point game. It's like 15 points from the free throw line. He's really good on defense, and they
it's like
beat
in
the Bucks
those.
by 10.
It's like in those cartoons where somebody's hungry and everybody looks like a hot dog.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, I do.
Like old school Looney Tunes for the youngsters out there. But like it's going to be Jimmy Butler looking at everybody like they're Drew Holiday in round 1 of the 2023 playoffs. Just like,
Yeah.
I'm hungry. I'm
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to the buffet right now.
Yeah, and he just like that just feels like the most Jimmy Butler thing of all time to do. So we'll see if he does.
Wow.
I'm calling my shot on that now.
BetMGM over on points for Jimmy Butler in that game. Getting in it now.
I'm smacking the over. That'll be
Probably
my
not
play
up
of the
yet
day.
now. But
That'll be when it's live. That's gonna be my play of the day that day. All right, Wes. Last thing.
there it is.
We're gonna do yay or nay on some trade rumors up until the head of the deadline.
Fun.
Cam Johnson is. I decided this 2 seconds ago. So if it's bad,
It's a great segment idea. Yeah.
Joe Varden of The Athletic has reported the Cavs are seriously interested in Cam Johnson, long considered on the trade market. Doesn't seem like anything's close, but it's not just wishful shopping for the Cavs. It seems like they're really interested in Cam Johnson. Yay or nay on that being A, feasible, and B, a good move for Cleveland?
I think it is feasible. Bobby Marks tweeted this recently. He said that no player making over $20 million has gotten traded yet. And I think that's interesting. I think it's also a little bit of an arbitrary number. And nobody making $20 million gets traded until somebody making $20 million gets traded. There's enough interest in Cam Johnson, in other words, for him to get dealt here. So I like the fit in Cleveland, quite a bit. He's sort of like, I don't know if it's fair to call him an upgrade over Dean Wade, since the Cavs record with Dean Wade is immaculate.
And look,
but
Dean Wade is
he is certainly of the same
like
sort of ilk, and
yeah.
Cleveland, they've proven that they can use these guys. My question is, who do they move? And I think the obvious name then would be Karis LeVert plus some other stuff. But what do you think about that? Because Karis LeVert has quietly been on a little bit of a slump here since starting the season off hot. And he does kind of feel like the odd man out at times, but at other times it's like, oh, wow, they really do kind of need his ball handling off the bench and stuff. So unless I'm missing something, but it seems like LeVert would be the guy heading out.
There's 2 ways to do it. It would be LeVert, and it would be Niang plus Okoro. Those are your 2 paths.
Okay.
I think I would probably prefer the LeVert one because I'm not a LeVert guy.
Okay.
LeVert has run really hot from 3 this year. He's been a better player under Atkinson, but he's also about to be a free agent. I'm not a big Niang guy. I'm more of an Okoro guy, though. He's been kind of shaky since he came back from the shoulder injury. You just did re-sign him on a pretty cheap contract. I would rather not have to do the dance of like maybe overpaying LeVert again in the summer and use him plus some seconds and like maybe like Jalen Tyson or something, like who's a rookie.
I was going to ask you if you'd be willing to part with Tyson.
I don't know if they would, but like that's that's like one of the sweetener options they have. It's one of those.
They have picks, right?
They've like I think they can trade some future first now, but like remember they're so committed to their firsts are limited because of the Mitchell.
They only have because of the Mitchell deal. They only have the 2031 first, but they have a bunch of seconds.
But like I think I would want to just do a ton of seconds. I don't think I want to trade that 2031 first if I'm them. I think teams should be really scared to trade future first. And also it's Cam Johnson. It's not like I'm getting like if Dorian Finney-Smith didn't go for a first, I don't know why Cam Johnson should go for a first.
No, the way that negotiation works is we'll give you 3 second-round picks, and Brooklyn is, or whatever it is, and Brooklyn's like, no, we want your first, and then Cleveland's like, all right, then we don't want we're done here. Like we're the number 1 seed in the East. We don't really need Cam Johnson. We just sort of see him as a luxury. If you find a better offer elsewhere, that's fine. If not, this offer is here. Like that's how that's probably how that negotiation goes, I would imagine. I actually don't mind if you go Niang and Okoro plus maybe something else. That would work. This would remind me a little bit of like when Toronto traded for Marc Gasol in the middle of the 2019 season before they made that title run.
That's a high note, Wes, because the Raptors traded for Marc Gasol and won a championship.
Yeah, but they were still a good team during the regular season, right? Like they didn't like come out of nowhere, and that's sort of what Cleveland would be doing here. It's like at first it doesn't feel like they need that, but then if you think about Cleveland in the playoffs, they rely on Niang quite a bit.
Too much.
When they start getting into their rotation and one of Mobley and Allen come off, they rely on Niang quite a bit there. To have one more real 4 who could space the floor and somebody like Cam Johnson just to round those rotation patterns out, that could be way more valuable than I think we're giving it credit for. Not we, but like the collective NBA we.
Let me ask you this as a counterpoint to what you're saying about if it's Okoro plus Niang. If you traded LeVert, and like then you get Cam Johnson and Niang becomes depth, and Okoro maybe is a little bit less. You're less reliant on him. But then Ty Jerome is your now like 3rd emergency ball handler guy. Do you feel okay about that? If
that's the thing, no. And I love Ty Jerome.
He had a nuclear start to the season, an absolutely amazing start to the year, but it has also cooled off a little bit.
He's Ty Jerome, and he's going to get he's 6 foot. Maybe there's gonna be even defensively some concerns there where Karis LeVert is at least 6'5". He can hold his own on that end in terms of size, but that's sort of why I'm more. And Max Strus can do some ball handling, and that he's back and really back after the injury. That helps, but I would want LeVert maybe just for the ball handling. Plus, it's an expiring contract where that can come off the books, and then you can make your roster a little bit cheaper.
Or it's either that or you're like I think of it too is you also can't lose him for nothing, and that happened last time where they signed him to a 2-year deal. Do you then get in the same spot again where you're the team giving Karis LeVert a thing and you say, oh, we can trade it, but is he actually tradable? Like I'm almost like wondering if there's a second trade here where it's like, okay, you do LeVert, but then you flip Niang for like a ball handle. But then are you messing with too much chemistry in season for a team that's been awesome and built on chemistry and vibes?
Right. And they like LeVert, right? Like that LeVert's like a locker room
I would say in my time like covering the team, always find him very affable. I think he is well like there. I think Atkinson and him also have a bond because they were together in Brooklyn. The Niang Okoro thing might be the more realistic one.
And just from a financial perspective too, like you're gonna pay Cam Johnson $22 million, Niang makes 8, Okoro makes 10. So now you're talking about $40 million.
And you're already
for essentially one position.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot. So I would probably think you go Okoro and Niang, keep LeVert, and if LeVert does walk away for nothing, you're going from paying $40 million on one position to basically 20 plus, and then you lose LeVert. So now you're saving another 16-ish against the cap. In other words, it maintains your flexibility. Even if you let him walk away for nothing, you don't end up going into that second apron and all those other things.
Yeah, because they're over the tax now, and I think coming into the year, I would have expected them to be a team that dips under the tax to keep the clock fresh. That would be a bad PR move to do right now.
Can't do it now.
Can't do it. But if suddenly you did it in the subtly, and then if you set yourself up in the summer,
right,
easier to do that if LeVert's come off the books. This is why they employ cap people who are good at math and not podcasters who just vaguely understand.
What are you talking about? I think we just nailed it. They can hire us.
I'm just saying.
Just I don't need a full-time job. I don't need benefits, but I just give me a consulting fee.
Yeah, consulting fee, and like, can Wes and I get courtside seats for one game next to Myles Garrett?
Does he go to a lot of these games?
He's a partial. Yeah, he goes to a decent amount of games, and he has a ownership stake, like a nominal ownership stake.
Is he the most famous guy who's always sitting courtside in Cleveland?
When he's there, yes. No one care. They care more about Myles. And I would say broadly, I think people care more. A lot of people care more about Myles Garrett being at the games You can literally go to a Cavs game, West, go into the team shop, and before like Sam Merrill, Isaac Okoro, some of the guys deeper on the bench, you can get a Myles Garrett jersey, like already printed. You don't have to ask for a custom. It is just
A Cavs jersey or a Browns jersey?
A Cavs jersey. It is just available. It is just available in the team shop.
That's great. Who's that rapper from Cleveland?
Kid Cudi, MGK. Which one? MGK has not been around in a while.
Yeah, Machine Gun Kelly, right?
Kid Cudi also has not been around in a while. Bone Thugs
He's a Cleveland guy? I knew he was an Ohio guy.
Shaker Heights, man. Yeah. Neither of them
he doesn't go to games that much, does he?
No, none of them live here. Here's the thing about Cleveland. Great city. I love it. I will die here. People that are from here usually leave if they're become famous enough. They dip.
Or if you're playing football for the Browns, I suppose.
And then you're probably also like Myles Garrett lives also like way out in the burbs.
Is Baker Mayfield the most famous Brown of like the last 10 years?
No, it's
like the highest. Did he hit the highest peak?
Probably. And I can't believe Baker Mayfield just came up on the show. Yeah, and now I think there'd be like we should get to study Browns fans' brains when you like say like words like Myles Garrett and
see
Baker
what
Mayfield
happens
and Deshaun Watson.
They just light up
to see what happens, like what parts of their brain fire up in trauma responses and all of that. Good times. Yeah, it's either Garrett but Baker probably or Watson in a really bad, unfortunate way.
Yeah, that's fair. Definitely more headlines.
Yeah, it's not great. All right, we're going to end there on Deshaun Watson. I'm Chris Manning. That's Wes Goldberg. Back at you next week with more than just basketball show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the hoops. We'll talk to you soon.